Chris C. Your recital of the poem, Joy of Creating, reminded me of something I've always wondered. Sorry if it's come up before, but I'm a new subscriber. LRH produced volumes of writings, and the ex-Scientologists I've been exposed to seem to all have an uncanny ability to recall and recite much, if not all, of it. Can you give a specific example of the process one would go through where the end result is having these words forever committed to memory? Was that poem part of a class? How were you introduced to it? What did the exercises consist of? And how would you have performed the steps? Well, nobody actually has asked me about this before, which is why I'm taking it up and answering this, because there actually are a couple procedures in Scientology for memorizing things. Memorization and rote learning is a standard part of a lot of destructive cults and how they inculcate their members or the followers in the teachings of the guru, in this case Hubbard. And so there have been, the first and most used in Scientology is something that Hubbard called Chinese school. And this was a procedure that he said or claimed was based on how children in China are taught. Now, I have no idea at all whether this has any grain of truth in it or not, or did in the past, but what Hubbard said is that children in China were taught by having pieces of information put up on boards, and the teacher would take a stick and would point to the board, and the entire class would recite aloud what the teacher was tapping out on the board with the stick. And so they engaged in rote learning and memorization, doing this procedure. Well, this is what Hubbard described, and this is what Scientologists do. And especially in the Sea Org or on staff, you will get at musters where they gather up, or at staff meetings, they'll have everybody do this Chinese school, and they'll take butcher paper or blackboards and they'll write out pieces of information, quotes from L. Ron Hubbard, that they want people to memorize. And they will sit there and chant it, like somebody will stand there and they will not just chant this like quietly, this is shouted out, like screaming the data. And this is, and everybody does it in unison, right? And so it's kind of impressive, actually, when you get like 100 people in a room all chanting this thing all at once. And then this is done over and over repetitively until the board or the butcher paper can be turned around or rolled back up, and everybody just says it. And this was done with all kinds of information through the years that I was in Scientology. I did this for, there would be some things that we would do Chinese school on for months. Every morning we would rattle off management data, or when I was learning how to be a course supervisor in Scientology, there's a thing called the Supervisor's Code, which I think is like 23 points or something, and we had to learn every one of them verbatim. And so every morning we would chant off, like we would take a chunk of 5 of them, and we'd go through them, and we'd go through them like 3 or 4 times. And over the days, we'd go through all 23 points. And you do that for months on end, every morning for 10, 15 minutes in the morning. After about 4 or 5 months, you've learned it. And I knew that Supervisor's Code for years and years and years. I could probably right now still rattle off some of those things. So that would be an example of how it was done. There was another time where there was a special project in Los Angeles. I was a manager, and all of the managers for the Western United States were gathered up, and we spent hours and hours Chinese schooling whole issues that Hubbard had written. We had to literally memorize an entire 2-page issue, and that was quite something. That took us weeks to do, but we got it. We got the whole thing, And I don't particularly say that with pride right now. I'm just saying that's what we did. The other thing is familiarity. Is just you hear something over and over and over again. And that Joy of Creating poem that I recited was a case of that. We would Chinese school Joy of Creating sometimes, but also there was you just hear it over and over and over again. And Joy of Creating is just a few lines. It was easy to memorize that. So when you're around something for as many years as most Scientologists are, I was 27 years, and the same important things keep being stressed, then you just learn them, kind of like your favorite songs. You know, you just hear them over and over again, and you pick them up. There now, ever since 1996, there was also a drill that was done in the classrooms with individuals, not Chinese school, but individuals would sit and do these verbatim drills where they were required to learn Scientology pieces of information verbatim. And they were called patter drills, and they were required to learn the patter, like the commands of auditing procedures or what they were expected to say during certain things. And then this was also carried over to learning the code of a supervisor or various lengthy Scientology pieces of information, which I won't even try to get into right now because I'd be talking technical stuff for hours, but long pieces of stuff. And what you do is you literally just sit down in front of a wall and you hold in the piece of paper of what it is you're supposed to learn, and you just sit there and recite it to the wall. You say it out loud to the wall over and over and over, and people will do this for hours until they learn. And then the supervisor will come over and he will check the person. He'll take the paper from them, and they will have to sit there and say the whole thing perfectly, not miss a beat, not miss anything. And when they can do that, they get a pass on that drill. Excuse me. And they go on to the next drill, or they go on to whatever else they're going to do. So all Scientologists now do these verbatim patter drills on lots and lots of different things in Scientology. So it is a thing. There are different methods in Scientology to do it. And that's how I knew that poem.